The idea of serious stories in SMG4 has never been universally well received. SMG4 was always a comedy series, and the change from a Mario with Memes channel to a dramedy series was understandably confusing for some. However, the first two story arcs proved that the concept could work with well-written stories and character development. With the anime arc, on the other hand, the writers clearly bit off more than they could chew. The entire arc was 12 episodes long, but only half of it managed to be interesting. Its ending marked the first major permanent death in the series, and arguably the second as well. One of the biggest criticisms of this arc was the derailment of Meggy's character from an unshakable, athletic Inkling girl into an emotionally unstable human girl. This new character arc carried on through the rest of 2019, and on February 29th, 2020, it would finally come to a close with Meggy's destiny. The plot of Meggy's destiny doesn't actually start right away. Instead, the movie begins by essentially recapping Meggy's character through an internal monologue, ending with Desti's final words. After this opening scene, we're shown the Splat Squad's final day of training for Splatfest. Professor Egad introduces his new invention, the Inkboy 3000, which gives its user all the same abilities as an Inkling. While the rest of the team is naturally grateful, Meggy, surprisingly, is not. Instead, she claims that she's skilled enough to win without it, and gets rid of it. In the final training round, Meggy does well, but Tari manages to catch her off guard and take the win for herself. Later that night, Meggy begins to doubt herself. She could have won that round, but she choked. Will she be ready to win the Splatfest? She manages to reassure herself, and she goes to party with the rest of her friends. The next day, she and the Splat Squad are standing outside Deca Tower. Though the rest of them are nervous, Meggy inspires them by telling them that there's no way they can lose. Wait, I thought plot armor was invisible. Well, she hallucinates Desti immediately after, so maybe that's just her thing. The first round is the Splatsticle course, a set of obstacles specifically designed to highlight the Inkling's abilities, which will be difficult for Meggy as she insists that she doesn't need the Inkboy. Before the round starts, an elite team of Inklings known as Killer Ink start to bully the Splat Squad simply for being humans. Tari has to stop Meggy from fighting back, as doing so could get them disqualified. The round begins, and at first, Meggy seems to be getting along fine. She makes it past most of the obstacles, at some points even using her human form to her advantage, but the last one proves to be the most daunting. This giant pit requires a super jump to get across, with no way to get around. As Meggy tries to assess the situation, Killer Ink runs in behind her and shoves her into the pit. Good thing Meggy had bombs on hand.
Apparently.
She is able to launch herself just close enough to the edge that her friends are able to catch her and bring her to safety. Even with their display of teamwork, they continue to get bullied by Killer Ink. A small fight breaks out between the teams, which almost gets them disqualified, but instead, they simply walk away with a warning. Hang on, how come this is fighting, but these are completely fine? Did they just not see those from the other side of the pit? Who cares, it never affects the story again. As Meggy heads home, she keeps thinking about Killer Ink, and her frustration continues to grow. She tries to buy an ice cream to calm down, but Inkopolis doesn't serve humans, for health and safety reasons. The more signs she sees, the more annoyed she gets. If it weren't for that stupid lizard, she wouldn't be going through any of this. If only she could be an Inkling again. Oh, I get it, 'cause it's like a ghost of her past, haha! Meggy is confronted by her Inkling self, who tries to reason with her about using the Inkboy. Human Meggy doesn't budge, and Inkling Meggy leaves. She wakes up. Was that conversation a dream or a nightmare? The next morning, Meggy throws away her Inkboy and proceeds to the second round, tower defense. The goal is simple, to be the first to take out 100 Squidwards. Though the lack of an ink boy doesn't directly hinder her, the enemy team's kill stealing certainly does. Even so, the Splat Squad seems on pace to win, until the Ink Brigade clutches out the win with the last-second burst of kills. How suspiciously convenient. Meggy has lost the Splatfest. She couldn't keep her promise. She finally admits to needing the Ink Boy, but there's nothing she can do now except leave. Luigi and Tari are ready to do the same, but Mario wants to stay behind, to investigate. Meggy is found on Moray Towers, still upset about her loss. Axol shows up to try to cheer her up, inviting her to join him for an Ink Boy ride. She's hesitant at first, but she eventually comes around. After speeding down the wall and flying from a ramp, she feels much better, and the two stop to talk. Meggy expresses her biggest frustration with the Ink Boy, the fact that she even needs it at all. For the others, it's effectively just a power-up, but for Meggy, it's just another reminder of how the events of the anime arc have affected her life for the worse. Axol encourages her, not by ignoring her feelings, but by reminding her that she's not defined by her species. Yes, being a human does affect her appearance and biology, but not her true character. Ink Boy or no, she is still the same Meggy she always was. Tension breaker! The Squid Sisters arrive to tell Meggy she's still in the Splatfest. As Mario found, the Ink Brigade had cheated by shooting fake Squidwards out of a cannon. As the runner-up, the Splat Squad advances to the final round. Meggy is overwhelmingly happy to know she has another chance, and she refuses to let it go to waste. Meanwhile, in Meggy's mind, she finally makes peace with her past self. However, she is immediately met by the very person she's been trying to avenge, Desti. She asks Meggy how it feels to get this close to becoming the Splatfest champion she always wanted to be. Since Meggy has dropped her pride, she doesn't care about winning for herself anymore. Her only goal is to keep her promise to Desti. The final round, Splat Squad vs Killer Inc. in Turf War, the mode where it all started. On Walleye Warehouse, the stage where it all started. It is on. Meggy chases after the leader. She pops out from behind Meggy and knocks her down. But if there's one thing we know about Meggy by now, it's that she always gets back up. With a combination of teamwork, tenacity, and 12 camera shots before the result is announced, the Splat Squad wins the Splatfest. Afterwards, Meggy and her friends go to party at her apartment, and Meggy takes a moment to thank Axol for showing her how to move forward. She steps outside and takes a moment to imagine Desti one last time. Desti asks her what she's going to do now that all of this is over, since she hasn't been focused on anything else the past couple months. Meggy knows she needs to move on with her life, just like she knew she needed to use the Ink Boy, but she finds it hard to forget about Desti. Desti simply gives Meggy a hug and thanks her for keeping her promise. In return, Meggy gives Desti a proper final goodbye, and Desti disappears, never to be seen again. Having finally dealt with all of her inner struggles, Meggy runs back inside to have fun with her friends and to continue being the best Meggy she can be. This movie was so good. I don't just mean it's better than the anime arc. If the anime arc set the bar, you wouldn't even have to jump to get over it. No, this movie was far better than that. First and foremost, Meggy's destiny is funny. Mario, Luigi, Tari, and even Human Meggy all have their funny moments. Human Meggy is also much more expressive than before, which makes exaggerated expressions hilarious and subtle expressions more valuable. If all you're looking for is laughs, this movie will not disappoint you. But if there's one thing the anime arc proved, it's that funny doesn't directly translate to good. So what makes Meggy's Destiny so good? Meggy's been through a lot lately. At the end of the anime arc, Meggy's transformation kicked off the Human Meggy character arc. Human Meggy had to learn how to use her human body and struggled with depression because of Desti's death. In order to keep her promise, Meggy trained for the Splatfest like she never had before. However, she's always struggled with pride, and in this movie, her pride leads her to refuse help that she knows she needs. Meggy knows that her teammates are on her level by now, but her ego says that she'll always be better than them, just like she's always been better than everyone else. Therefore, the only way to prove it is to limit herself. Meggy's apparent loss in the second round causes her to break down and humbles her in a way that mere discussion never could. And in her vulnerable state, she's finally able to accept advice. Meggy learned something in this movie. More importantly, the lesson is something Meggy actually needed to learn, and isn't just thrown in at the last minute. There is one other thing that Meggy did need to learn: to completely and truly move on from Desti's death. And after fulfilling her promise, she finally can. The final scene in this movie is executed so well, mostly because it isn't melodramatic. It ends the movie triumphantly, yet it remains emotionally realistic. But if Desti and Meggy were never truly friends, how is this emotionally realistic? Desti is way too heartfelt here compared to her actual character. You're absolutely right. But you're forgetting something important. In fact, it's something that not only makes sense of Desti's portrayal in this movie, but also makes sense of nearly everything about the Human Meggy arc. Every time Desti appears in this movie, it's because of Meggy's imagination. Meggy's Destiny gives us a better understanding of how Meggy saw Desti in the anime arc, where we thought, maybe Desti isn't that bad after all. Meggy could see much more than that. She didn't just see a jerk with a heart of gold, she saw a potential friend. She even calls Desti her friend, despite the fact that the feeling was never mutual. Albeit in a different way, Meggy agrees that Desti's death was a waste of her potential. Her redemption arc could have led to a resurgence in her character, but instead, we're left disappointed knowing what could have been. That said, she was a nice addition while she was around. She was a funny one-off villain in her debut and an entertaining anti-hero during the anime arc. She was a well-written character to the very end. Only her death was poorly written, with no explanation given for its permanence and too little usage of the character for me to be too attached to her, or for me to believe that Meggy would be too attached to her. Speaking of Meggy, the rivalry between her and Desti is where most of the wasted potential lies. A dynamic like that can't just be recreated on a whim, can it? In a way, Killer Inc. was doomed to fail as villains. Even though the focus of the movie is not entirely on Meggy's winning the Splatfest, it still wouldn't be very exciting without some skilled opposition. The only problem is that the only fitting opponents would have been the Octoposse, the team with the smallest chance of showing up. The solution? Just recreate them from scratch, except with half of the personality and none of the motivation. Desti's motivation was basically to get Meggy's attention, and she was much more playfully antagonistic, which gave her a likable trait. Killer Inc. has neither of these. The description of Killer Inc. makes it seem like they'd be arrogant elites, which is still tricky to make likable, but not impossible. Instead, not only are they designed to be unlikable, but they have no motivation for their behavior. They're just terrible excuses for inkling beings. Silly me. How could I ever get those mixed up? They don't even have a change of heart either. They're forgotten as quickly as they're introduced. They create a conflict, sure, but a very shallow and uninteresting one. I think giving the Octoposse a new leader related to Desti would have had more potential to be enjoyable, and the characters being similar to Desti would have actually made sense. Oh yeah. Look, I don't need everything in this series to make perfect sense all of the time. Half the appeal of this series is its nonsense humor. The trouble is that serious moments can't be explained away with the rule of funny. They need to make at least some sense. The phrase SMG4 logic gets used a lot to counter arguments like this, and while it may be fine outside of the story arcs, it's become a half-baked excuse to justify a lack of proper storytelling. If it's called logic, where's the logic? Having Killer Inc. discriminate against humans for no reason makes me more frustrated with the writers than with the characters that I'm supposed to hate. As bad as Killer Inc. is, they don't take much from my enjoyment of the movie. They're only ever there during Splatfest competitions, and their bullying never lasts for too long. Regardless, Killer Inc. is undeniably the worst part of Meggy's destiny. To further this point, I have one character left to discuss. Axol has never been widely popular, and to be fair, it's not that hard to see why. SMG4 has been saturated with OCs for a while, and needless to say, they're not always funny. I think Axol is a good character with much more potential than people give him credit for. He is the otaku, and it's hilarious to watch him act and talk like an anime character. His Inkweaver is where all of his strength lies, and anytime he tries to defend himself without it, he is quickly taken down. As shown in both the anime arc and this movie, he also has a level of wisdom unique to him. Sure, either Tari or Luigi could have been there to comfort Meggy, but are either of them particularly wise? I think the only thing stopping Axol from becoming a great SMG4 character is his lack of screen time. If he goes underused, he goes underappreciated. And if he goes underappreciated, he goes under. Meggy's destiny does have a few other flaws. The pacing can feel sluggish at times, the wording in some lines could have been better, and small editing mistakes keep the movie from looking quite as polished on a rewatch as it's trying to seem. Still, there's a reason I wanted to rewatch this movie. Meggy's destiny as a whole is quite enjoyable. The protagonists are all well written and serve their purposes perfectly, but Killer Inc. is unlikable and lacks character motive. The Splatfest story is predictable, but they hardly pretend like it isn't. The focus is on Meggy's character development, which is believable if nothing else. The quality of this movie may not alleviate my problems with Human Meggy, but at least a character arc with such a rocky start could end in such a huge success.